What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be reacting to this Vice debate, minorities debate, skin bleaching, and a whole bunch of other nonsense. I don't expect a lot of good faith discussions to take place in this discussion. Maybe I'll be surprised. And make sure you guys like the video and share the video. Much appreciated. Let's get right into it.
Thanks today. Hello everyone, I want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexis Johnson. I'm a correspondent with Vice News, and I'll also be acting as our moderator for today's panel. We first want to put out the disclaimer that, we've done our best to get you all here today of different ethnicities, different shades, different skin tones to talk about this topic, but we realize we can't represent everybody in this discussion, okay? Today we're going to be discussing a topic that, as a brown-skinned black woman moving throughout the world, it's something that I think about a lot. It's something that I hear being discussed a lot, both in real life, online, in the media. Today we're here to talk about colorism. What is colorism and how do you define it?
Hi, my name is Koa and I identify as biracial. I think about colorism as a distinct hierarchy that is anchored in a proximity to whiteness.
Interesting. I think colorism is internalized racism. I'm Calvin West and I am an American.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Maya. I use they, them pronouns and I'm black. So I actually think that colorism existed before racism, and the fact that historically, for example, if you look at Europe or Asia, like serfs, peasants, people who were in the lower classes had to work and toil in the sun, and those who were royalty or aristocrats or whatever tend to be lighter skinned, and so they're...
She's actually right about that. I don't think it's a race thing. It's more of a cultural thing. And realistically, it's another proxy for status and wealth. If you're in a society where the poor people have to work in the sun and the wealthy people get to not be in the sun, you can use skin color as a proxy for wealth and status, because the wealthier people will naturally be lighter than the poorer people because they're not working out in the sun. It's that simple. It's not inconceivable that there's a scenario which can arise where darker skin becomes the proxy for wealth. Even if you look at modern American society, having a tan is kind of a proxy for wealth and status as well. But she's right, it's not a race thing.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. I identify as Iranian. As someone who's from an Asian country that wasn't technically colonized, we even have colorism in that idea, even without people coming in and telling us that. So it's almost like a preconceived idea that's in our heads.
Okay.
There are personal consequences for colorism. There are also systemic consequences, and colorism has implications for public health, beauty, and all sorts of things in society.
Okay. So you said that you feel like it is internalized racism?
The blackest experience any black person can have is of the black person telling them that they aren't black. And that is something that happens to lighter skinned black people, because there's this idea and that I've lived a different life because I'm a lighter skin. And that to me is the most anti-black thing you can do to anybody.
Maya, what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I saw you had a little bit of a reaction.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Is this dude saying he's light skinned? What the hell?
So I think often when lighter skinned people talk about experiencing bias from darker skinned people, I think that my first thought is just remember that colorism is an ism. And when something has an ISM, it means institutional power plus prejudice. Darker skinned people.
It actually doesn't mean that at all. You guys create your own concepts so that they can be consistent with your wild notions. They want it to mean that so it can fit neatly into their new definitions that they're creating constantly. Ism, a distinctive doctrine, cause, or theory. This seems like a new addition. An oppressive and especially discriminatory attitude or belief. Existentialism is an oppressive belief. This second definition is an example of ideological capture. We all have got to come to grips with our isms. This is exactly what ideological capture looks like. Eventually it spreads into all aspects of society, where you have the Webster's Dictionary deferring to their worldview over the truth.
Of people do not have the ability, the institutional power to, for example, put you in prison for longer sentences because of being lighter skinned or, having less access to employment. There's actual statistics where a darker skinned person with a master's degree usually has less employment opportunities or is less employable than a lighter skinned person who has a bachelor's. And it's not to say that bullying is I know that hurts. It's personal sentiment. I know that actually feels bad, but I think that it's important to remember when we're talking about whether racism or colorism or anything that's an ism, that there's an element of institutional power that is added on to the prejudice.
Wait, so black people don't have power, but light-skinned black people have power? These people need to keep up with their nonsense.
Yes.
I do feel like when darker skinned people express their frustration to lighter skinned people that their lives might be different, harder, I think you sort of have to acknowledge your privilege, you know, or else it's very ignorant. Even though we're both black.
What specifically does that mean? Like, I've had experiences in my life that have not been great. And I can assume that it's because of the color of my skin, right? We talk about these ideologies, right? Which I think we get lost in sometimes. And we have to just bring it back to reality of like, well, let's talk about your situation for a second. How has it affected you specifically? And the answers that you get are, I didn't get an apartment, I didn't get a job, I didn't get that promotion, which happens to everybody, right? They can always talk about somebody else and what's happened in history, but they can't talk about their own lived experiences. And that's important.
I have plenty lived experiences. I mean, we could go from like, for me, I'm in the beauty industry, the beauty world, so I get invited to influencer events, and if I look around and I'm the darkest black person, there's still a problem there. You know what I mean? That's a perfect example of that. And you might not realize it, but white people, lighter skinned people, they might be more willing to approach you because you are of lighter skin. That's another personal thing that, have you realized that?
Yes, I can acknowledge that may be the thing. Here's the other thing that happens. The other side of that, the other perspective on that is that
I'm still tripping over the fact that this dude is considered light skinned. This is a problem with this stuff, man, because it's like, we don't even have a set standard of what is light skinned. Because I don't consider this dude light skinned. I consider him, like, if I saw him, I would never go, this is a light skinned black guy. I'd be like, this is just a black guy.
I've done a lot of things in the acting world. I've missed roles because I'm not dark enough. And there's a lot of black people who don't know that. They have no idea that your skin tone is actually highly sought out for.
But I feel like that's acting. You know, they're looking to fill a specific role, whereas if you're just applying for a job, you know, a lighter skinned person might get that opportunity over a darker skinned person.
I get so many personal testimonials from young darks.
Might. If I'm having trouble distinguishing between light skin and dark skin, as shown by my confusion by this dude, like, I don't think the average white guy is going to be able to be like, oh, that guy right there, he's a light skin compared to me. Like, that's insane.
And black girls who are very detailed about how colorism affects their life. So obviously colorism is a systemic issue, but I think an important part of it is the personal battle like young black girls endure. These girls are being bullied. Some are as young as 14, 13 years old, having really like mental health crises in middle school. Like, there's also so much research about how colorism shows up like systemically. Like, there's research on public health and the different health outcomes darker skinned black people have as opposed to lighter skinned black people. And there's one about pulse oximeters like being used during COVID and how the devices have a harder time registering darker skin. And you can imagine the implications for that. And we know that the black community has been disproportionately affected by COVID in terms of like death.
They've been disproportionately affected because of medical equipment or because of lifestyle factors. Like what are we saying? Like, let's be real here. We should all know the comorbidities associated with the cough. And those comorbidities predominantly affect black people, and they're primarily related to lifestyle factors.
I don't think that evidence can be divorced from the anecdotes, you know, because the anecdotes just supplement the evidence.
Lamar, what are your thoughts?
When you come with statistics like that's the kind of supporting arguments that we need, as opposed to kind of moving away from the anecdotal, in my opinion, right? Because we're talking about something so big and so huge that affects everyone who is alive. I'm in the middle, you know, colorism exists for sure. I just think there's a lot of confirmation bias in our personal experiences that might drive us right to that term, when it could be a number of other things.
Are you changing your mind at all?
As well as self-lived testimony, as well as anecdotal evidence. It goes back to how you feel about yourself.
I feel like it sounds like you're saying racism is like a choice almost.
How you respond to racism is, absolutely. And I know that that's uncomfortable, and I love it. This is my wheelhouse, trust me. How you respond to racism is a choice.
I'm hearing, particularly on this side of the room, this idea that you can make an individual choice outside of the context of history, culture, politics, structures. I don't believe that personally. I think when anybody
She's hearing from that side of the room. I think this one guy
buys a certain product, styles themselves a certain way, decides to not style themselves a certain way, read a certain book, use certain words in a job interview, approach a politician. I think all of that is informed by history, literally all of the time. Yeah.
We don't want to talk about anybody's individual experiences of it unless it's an experience that is affected by colorism in the way that you guys are comfortable with it. Colorism also happens on the other end. When I talk about the internalized racism and how lighter skinned voices, they don't get heard, they don't get pushed out there within the Black community, I get eye rolls, I get, people, there's a reaction to that.
As that chick eye roll.
That is very negative and not welcoming. And
I'm not in the business of denying people their lived experiences, like who am I? But I think we can also acknowledge that those things happen. Like lighter skinned people have like certain experiences where they feel invalidated because of their complexion. And we can also
and you acknowledge that colorism affects lighter skinned people?
There's no such thing as reverse colorism, same way there's no such thing as reverse racism, reverse sexism,
This is a very important thing that they did here because it reveals the ideological capture and the tactics that they use. Like it's like they create a formula. The formula started with Black people can't be racist because Black people don't have power. Black people can only be prejudiced. Complete nonsense. And then they apply it to every other quote unquote ism that they create. So Black people can't be racist. Darker skinned people can't be colorist. Women can't be sexist. Old people can't be ageist. Oh man, these people are out of control, man. These people are out of control. Once you see the tactic, it's so clear what they're doing because it's so disingenuous. And that's why this ideology and this way of viewing things is so cannibalistic. It eats its own because most of the people in this room would characterize themselves as being oppressed. Yet you have this oppression Olympics taking place where they're like, well, no, but I'm a little bit more oppressed, and you might be a little bit more. It's a race to the bottom, king of the hill. Maybe it's what they really want, but it seems like it's lost on them where this leads.
Universe ism, that's what I believe.
That's your opinion.
I agree in the sense that the experiences you're talking about that circulate around like all this coded language of like you're not actually Black or you're not Black enough or like quantifying.
Which also happens with white people.
I didn't finish speaking.
I'm sorry. I just want to add to your point. Go ahead.
Damn, there's a lot of heat coming from that side of the room.
I have experienced versions of that myself, and I do not consider that to be colorism. Colorism is distinctly about a system and resources and visibility and autonomy within those systems.